I'm Kelsey Moser, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel, where no sandbagging goes unscrutinized.
Right, this is going to be episode 8 of Middle Kingdom Minds. We've got a guest for this one. Turns out that actually, that's the only downside of doing an LPL podcast, is most of the people who are the old school people who go on those podcasts are not available. Kelsey's off in the it's not the 100 Thieves Academy. Froscorian's in Europe. I'd make some sort of a joke there, but we'll just leave it for now. Drexen's over at Esports Heaven, slaving away forever, just grinding like a motherfucker. God bless. Who else was there? I can't remember his name. What was the name of that like Korean kid who like Hubo used to just try and pop off all the time. By the way, you know what? I'm not a BM person that'll tell private like information and stuff, but I will say that guy used to be so spicy on all those episodes of fucking China Talk. And I met him in real life when I was in Korea, and he was the most meek, like he was almost like a schoolboy or something. He was so fucking like lovely, and like if like I was thinking, this would be great because I can really like sort of chew the fat over like some like, well, let's go in depth on some players. And then he was the sort of guy where if he'd say like, I actually think this, and then I'd go like, I disagree, It's like he'd go, yeah, maybe you're right. It's like, fucking come fight back. Where's the guy from the podcast? I've been sold a false bill of goods. Where's the guy from China Talk? But I've got my guy from China Talk. I've got Raz. He's still here.
There we go. Still fighting, still going.
And to be fair, I mean, one of the moves I never saw coming was Clement just left. He's in LPL, so the talent's gone. Talent's in LPL now, boys. We finally had the exodus. The exodus no one was asking for except me. But so obviously, I was the only one asking for it. Everyone else was like, "Well, I'm fine as it is. Whatever. LMS is dead." Right.
Yes.
Goomiho here, he knows very well the LMS is dead. Like, you have to understand, you can't even just go, well, at least there's the Flash Wolves. It's like, what's left of the Flash Wolves? There's the name. That's a bit like, and even then, the shit's closed down, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm visiting a grave every time I watch the LMS, honestly. It's a new vase of flowers, all that. There's really nothing going on.
A little bit of a somber tone.
Yeah. The only good player left is Betty, honestly. So what is there to do?
It's all right. We'll always have the good times. The beating the Koreans, Westor inexplicably being allowed to play and playing champions that haven't been better for about 5 years in pro games and getting paid a salary.
That's true.
I will say that like when Hanabi came in, and it was just like there was all that hype internationally, and then the last time we saw him internationally, and it was anti-hype.
His Scion player.
What the hell happened?
If he just played better, they would have gotten out of groups.
They would have. Dude, that's the thing people don't realize. Like, I actually think that it would have either been them and G2 or them and Afrika. Like, they really looked like that first week like they were going out. Like, through from the group, that is.
Yeah, and they still even threw that last game against PvB. So, like, it was, like, right there. They should have really been out of there. But
yeah, and by the way, that I know nowadays we've now seen Vietnamese teams, etc., be like legit, etc. But I'm sorry, if you know anything about the history of LMS and when it used to be GPL, there is one job the LMS has, and that is to beat the fuck out of all those other regions that used to be in the GPL every time they meet them, to let them know, listen, we're better than you. Don't ever think you'll be as good as us. You'll never be on our level. And they had to go on there. They basically just killed the team by just losing to them. That's so. Oh, you've muted yourself, mate. You've muted yourself, Goomiho. Yeah, that was
sorry. Yeah. They only lost one best of 5 against Vietnam in like 3 years, so
man alive.
Yeah, that was at the very end, right before they actually split off to become their own region, but still.
Okay, so Goomiho is a journalist, writer in the scene, currently like writing for VPesports, right?
I was not anymore. I'm back to freelance.
Yeah, there's a thing going on with that. People will find out soon because this show is technically sponsored by him. So we'll get into that later. So anyway,
we'll get into it later.
Let's go into the LPL. So in the LPL, right, the last episode we did of this show, the title I picked for the episode was FPX Test. Because if you looked at FPX, right, they were like top of the league, undefeated, but they hadn't played all the top teams. They'd played like some good teams, Obviously, the biggest win was over IG. That was very legit, But to be fair, IG has played a bunch of games in silly fashion. So obviously, I was thinking like, right, this is it, boys, because they're playing RNG. They played them. Almost won that series. Okay, fair enough. Keep going. Then they played TOP, the other top team. They played Sonning. We've made the joke already. Not a top team, but it'd be nice if they were. It'd be nice if they. I still hold out some deluded hope, you know, that it'll all turn around. You know. Then again, I'm also one of those people who still wanted to believe Insec would come back after about 5 years of just being not relevant whatsoever. So listen, inside, beneath this bitter, cynical exterior, there's an optimism that beats within me, you know. But I just have to, I crush it myself using the logic and reason, and then that way it doesn't infect the world with thoughts like Insec will ever come back to relevant play. Probably never happen, will it? So here's the question. Did FPX fail the FPX test, Raz?
Yeah, because the FPX test was a hard one. It was a test that they were the best team in the LPL, which no one ever believed. And
by the way, the stakes at the moment mean you might be the best team in the world. I know people are going to say not because of Griffin, but I think you have to at least contend for it. Yeah,
you're right. That's true. I think like ever since I think it was like 9.1, 9.2, Griffin has been much more passive, which makes them a target for international events, at least from the LPL perspective. So FPX. After beating IG, I was sold that they were a great team. I was sold that they were a team that could be like going in towards semifinals or perhaps even the finals itself. But the best team is already a difficult discussion as is.
Yes.
And then you saw them lose to, in the fashion that they lost to both RNG and TOP, it makes a lot of sense. Because FPX really rely on mid lane jungle to really snowball early mid game. And then be able to just propel them into team fights. And then both to RNG and TOP, they lost. Now, they lost in 3-game series, and in the fashion in which they did so, I think, like at least against RNG, they just lost out in team fights, just like hardcore. Just like they didn't have the positioning to begin with. And oftentimes, whenever they're on Baron, it was never an easy pickup. And they never had protection of their flanks. And like there were multiple things that I think that they failed on being able to deal with. And I still question whether they can pick up like longer, smarter team fights against like some of the best teams, and they weren't able to do that.
Goomiho, what do you think of FPX? Because obviously, brilliant start. Like they still have the pieces to be a top tier. Where are you putting them at the moment? What's your take?
You know, good team, but not contending for the title. I mean, they were number 1 for a while, but I think they. Like Raz said, they're really good mid-jungle, and they're really good at snowballing that because Doinb is so selfless. He pushes the wave. He doesn't really think about like what else he's doing. He actually made Tian look so much better for the first few weeks of the season, and it made a big difference for them. And they really covered up the fact that their bot lane's like super passive. They don't really do like they're like their AD carry is really good in team fights, but before that, he's not really impactful. And I think it just proved that they're super one-dimensional, and that if Doinb gets shut down, they don't really have a whole lot of other ways to approach teams. I think the other teams are too diverse. Like they're either like too diverse in their playstyle, or they're just better at their playstyle than FPX is at theirs. And so like with RNG, I think it's like, well, RNG is maybe not near the top right now, but they'll beat them in team fights because they're just going to do that eventually, unless it's against Rogue Warriors. But in general, FPX maybe like 5th, like maybe gonna end up like the 5th or 6th best team again somehow after being so good.
Right, here's the question. This is an open one. Everyone can jump in who has a point, right? So one of the questions I do have is on those past weeks. One of the things about this team is like every Doinb team, like players just play better than they do when they're not in a Doinb team. So my question for this team was, if we're going to look at the talent in China, like jungle talent is very, very good as well. That's another position that people don't realize how deep China's gotten for like a really, really good junglers, because you have people like XX that people don't particularly know, they just don't have the fame. Hacker, obviously never been to big international tournaments. So people don't know these players, right? Isn't that an issue that FPX have? That TN, I mean, would you consider him a top tier jungler?
I would, only because I think regardless of his pathing through mid, he still has a pretty good understanding of like where he needs to be in topside and being able to protect his bottom lane as well. So I would say right now I would rate him as a little higher than Hacker, because I think Hacker's been having some trouble right now as well. So I was surprised, and I think that's what Invictus Gaming series has shown me, is that Tien is strong. The only worry I ever had with Tien was that you're right, being boosted by the fact that Doinb's been giving him like a great amount of direction early. But we didn't get to see too much Tien in the LPL because he was like essentially a rookie. His first time around was on Suning, and he didn't even get the full spot. Funny enough, because Hacker was the one who came in and took that spot. So like finding his way as a main starter was a surprise for me, for someone who was so inexperienced. But then he got his shot, and I was really surprised of how he did versus Invictus Gaming. I still think he fared decently well versus TOP, but once again, right, you already mentioned it. I value XX higher in terms of how he's able to protect his map, solo laners in particular, and of course they already have better solo laners. That helps as well.
What do you think, Goomiho?
Well, I think 10 is solid. I mean, he's like good. I don't think like of him as like top 3, top 4 jungler, I guess, in my head.
Mm-hmm.
He's really smart. He's always on the right side of the map. I have to give him credit for that. He's usually fairly proactive. I think sometimes he actually just takes advantage of other junglers being bad, but I think that he isn't really their problem. I think their problem is just like a general lack of malleability. They do like one thing for the most part, and when that falls flat, I don't know. You see that happen with tons of teams. Like they're good at one thing, but maybe they're not good enough at it, and then they just lose.
It's pretty insane. It's actually pretty crazy how focused this team is, at least in the early game, of having Doinb just literally push and roam. Like legitimately just push and roam to look for bottom lane or top lane to get going early, because like that's been a fine strategy. But the reliance on it has been a surprising one for me, that I don't think I've seen any other team really need Doinb to be able to get out there early. And against, like, of course, I would say like 6th place teams and below, they don't even need to do that because they have strong enough laners to get out of the laning phase even. But it's when they went up against RNG in particular, I was like, yeah, okay. RNG and TOP, just because of how strong the mid laners were, Shahu and Knight, he needed to be able to get out of the laning phase. And then especially versus RNG, going bottom lane to help like ease the pressure. There was just, you could tell that if they were stuck in lanes for a lot longer than necessary versus the best teams, that they were finding deficits in where they really needed to be ahead. Like Doinb and LWX a lot of the times are the core to their success, and sometimes Gimgoon doesn't know how to essentially push back on pressure. So like if he's on the weak side and he picks up GP, and if he dies initially, sometimes he finds himself in the same position, pushed up in lane, and Gimgoon can just like find himself easily tilted. That's what the at least FPX kind of know him by, is like he's kind of like the guy who gets tilted in solo queue quite frequently, and you can hear him. So like even though like you may not hear him, and he's like a very quiet guy, but if he's flaming his teammates, then you in like solo queue, then you hear him. So it's like he's one of those players that I'm a little bit worried that gets in his own head if he falls behind.
Yeah, more on Gimgoon actually. Like all carry top laners are kind of like that. Like when they never really favor tanks, they tend to be the ones that just kind of explode. They don't fall flat, they explode. So they become like a point of pressure for the other team. Yeah, that really hurts. Like FPX side lanes just are so overly reliant on how mid goes or how Doinb affects the game.
I will say, like, that's one of the biggest differences between them and RNG, because even though them and RNG essentially have the same strengths in how they want to perform to team fights, Gimgoon versus Amazing J, like I think everybody rates Gimgoon higher than Amazing J, like an individual skill. But the fact that Amazing J is able to like consistently fall behind, make mistakes in lane, and then be able to come into team fights and have like a large enough threat, excluding the Rogue Warriors game where he like that didn't happen, but like literally every other game, Amazing J and team fights have been a major like a boost to their squad. And then that's always like that's the takeaway, the consistency that he has on a regular basis versus Gimgoon, who can find difficulties if he's behind to be able to draw back in. Most of the time it's champion pool, but yeah, it really just depends. Like last year, a lot of times it was just the way he ended up joining the fight. But I think he's a consistent performer. I still rate him far higher than Amazing J, especially recently.
Sure. Right, Xander, Goomiho, I've got a question for you here. I've asked Raz similar things in the past, but it's your turn to face the task of trying to explain some of the things Doinb does in how he approaches the game to someone who might be a Westerner watching this going, when I explain what I'm about to say, they're all going to think that like Doinb's a fucking meme and he's like the Genja of China or something. It's like, no, he's actually a really good player. Like he actually might be like MVP, etc. So if I tell them that in Season 9, Doinb has a champion pool at mid lane that includes Karma, Sion, Renekton, and when he is picking even normal champions, he enjoys to nearly always build Righteous Glory and build tank items, armor items. Can you explain to Westerners what the fuck is he doing?
He's playing for his team more than any mid laner in NA ever will. And I think that he really like he just understands how to win games. I don't know, like he's the reason why he gets Righteous Glory is because it lets you do so much. Like the other team never expects a Rise to just run at you with Righteous Glory and then Room Prison you. Like what are they gonna do? Like that's actually such a solid initiation because the CC is so long and then it's easy to follow up on. And like with stuff like Karma, you know, you just control the lane for free. Like no one can lane against Karma like at all, realistically. And he cares about wave priority and he cares about how to initiate team fights. His realm warps are also super good on Rise, which is another reason why that pick is so good for him. I think he just actually thinks about the game. Like I don't know, like people meme NA mids because you know there are none basically, apart from Pro Belter, right? And Pro Belter is like the kind of guy who tries to play like Doinb, but you know maybe like falls flat in some matchups. I think that I don't know. I think that I think mid laners in general across the world might think a little too one-dimensionally, and I think Doinb like at least brings a different.
A lot of them still think you have to smash the lane, basically. Even if they don't mean smash the lane like kill people, they still think you have to out CS the other guy or get the last pick and counter pick him and make sure you have a nice matchup.
Even with that being said, like some people, whenever they have a lead, if anybody comes out like pick up a lead, what they'll do. They'll look at the build list, like literally the same build, and continue to build it. Like they'll be like, all right, this might take some time, but you know, now I can get to it faster. But Doinb is the type of player to literally think about like he's critically thinking about what do you build to be as strong as possible with the lead that he has. He doesn't have to worry about damage. He's already over leveled. Like he's out leveled his opponent by like maybe 1 or 2 levels at times, especially if he's on side lane. I remember when he was on Victor, and this was a while back, when he would just go Iceborne Gauntlet Victor, like he would build like maybe 1 more tank item, and he already had the damage because he went out in lane because of the early skirmishes. There is no way his team should lose. So then the snowbally factor of it should be able to win out, and he would just constantly look for fights. So there's always that question mark that people end up having.
Right, here's what's been brutal about this season that we've discussed many times on this show, Goomiho, is that every time you feel like, because the big problem is most of the best teams didn't play until the last few weeks, actually. That's when you had all the super hype marquee matchups. So you had all these teams where it was like, you know, on paper, there's like 4 or 5 teams that all look like they could be LPL champions, but you're trying to figure out which one is the best one. And it changed because, you know, it starts as IG, and then maybe at some point in time when they lose a bit, right, maybe it's FPX. Oh, if it's not FPX, okay, it's RNG, right? If it's RNG, so, oh no, wait, they've just lost to LGD. Oh no, Rogue Warriors, sorry, yes. They lost to them, so maybe it's top, you know, it's like, it changes every week at the moment. So, come on, let's get into this series, because I thought myself when I saw the FPX series, right, this is the real RNG. This is the RNG I wanted to see. They've even managed to integrate Amazing Jian, Duzi. It's looking great. Xiao Hu's fucking carrying it. This could be a really exciting, like, new era of RNG. And then they lose to Rogue Warriors, a team that literally has had, by the way, in case people vaguely remember, I think I remember their name from last year. Yeah, they've had all the really good players stripped out. Like, they aren't on Rogue Warriors anymore. So that's not even the good Rogue Warriors. So what has happened here? What on earth is going on?
Well, Rogue Warriors, I think RNG just... Okay, so the first game, they basically just forget like how to play against Vayne, like every team seemingly does, I guess. Shout out to Griffin yesterday, yes, but exactly. I think that you have to approach front to back so much differently when you play against Vayne, because if you blow any cooldowns, it doesn't actually matter who you hit. If it's not Vayne, then you're not looking good. And
yes,
they actually had the right composition. I think to really like they had the Kled. Like Kled is actually surprisingly good with Vayne because you give her a lot of movement speed, and he's really annoying with his Barrett hook on a trap or whatever. And I think that That game was pretty unlucky. Game 2, they should have won. They just giga through that game. I'm not like RNG, like that series. They just weren't picking fights like in any intelligent manner. They're like, oh, I see a champion, and we might have more people. Let us try, and then they would fail. And I think the real big fight, or one of the big fights I remember for RNG is like when they flank a Morgana and they pour everything into a Morgana, and you just lose. I don't know. you're using your Lisandro to Morgana.
Exactly. Sometimes you just make the weirdest decisions.
Yeah, and game 2, and I think they would have won game 2 if the Baron didn't get stolen. I mean, that was extremely unlucky. Like, you can blame Karsa for that, but with the HP it was at, it was actually super hard to deal with that. It was like an 1100.
Yeah, like, it was actually impossible to smite that away from the Ezreal. I think like at that point Ezreal did like about he outsmited it just because I think he had around like 800 and maybe 900 damage off his Ezreal ultimate. And remember, this is on a level 11 Jarvan, which means that it's like 710 smite when the Baron itself was like 750. So I was like, it's like the only thing he could do was either just hope and pray, maybe his team that helps out bursting it, or you don't make it a 50-50. But they thought it was the cleanest. It didn't even seem like a 50-50. They probably didn't even know the Ezreal ultimate was flying until it was in the pit.
Yeah, they didn't really. They like Rogue Warriors actually reacted to that pretty slowly, and I don't know, they got bailed out. But either way, like even before that, they were choosing all kinds of bad fights. You have to be really particular with Jarvan, because once you're in, you're in, and if you're not making the right. I just remember Karsa like actually messing up quite a bit in the mid game, and that was unfortunate. I don't know. They were super decisive, but in the wrong way, so they got punished a lot.
My thing that I had in game 1 and game 2, because overall we have like in Esports as well. Like whenever you go into a series like this, remember Rogue Warriors were going into this thinking that this was their last chance to like continue. If they lose this series, they're out of playoffs. So for Rogue Warriors, they're just going to everything that was comfortable for them individually. Zhao Yun on Kled is just like his main champion. Hua Tian on Echo, he's played that quite a bit in solo queue, and I think that's just something he really wanted to hold on to. And then, of course, you have Jiangluji on Vayne. Like, that has been what he's known for. Like, so he picks Vayne against Uzi, and everyone thinks that's disrespectful. But my God, is he like, that's what that was his bread and butter. So that composition is super hard to deal with if you can't nail them down in lanes. Because, as you saw, like, Amazing J got a huge lead. And then ordinarily, like, he made the right call, because if a Poppy gets that large of a lead in lane and was able to take down turret, look to dive through mid, but it's an Echo, and they didn't coordinate well enough to make it so you can double down on Echo when you try and dive him. So it was just literally Poppy runs through, ease the Echo to the wall, or like just, forces him towards Shahu, and then Echo just presses ultimate, and you're like, tower's already ramped up. There's no going back on this dive. So they just like ended up leaving it when they could have added more members. That's what BLG did versus Suning when there was the same situation, is that they just had a real siege doubled up with Poppy's flank, and so there was no way for whoever it was to go underneath it. So Echo just had a lot of ways to be able to dissuade that, including his W. And so after that, it just went to a fact that you're right, they pumped up a lot of damage. When they finally got the fight, they pumped into a lot of damage on the Morgana. When it was the Kled, the damn Echo that was diving through the backline with the Morgana shield. She was still alive after that. Like, game 1 was disastrous, and then game 2, I thought, you're right, it was much better. Rogue Warriors didn't get that like one hamming composition, and they still lose out through like, there were a few fights, but specifically the Baron. And then the Elder Dragon situation where Amazing J just keeps getting caught out in these plays. So AJ, even though he was like, I made a point that he's the most consistent player and like top laner and how he plays out team fights. I was like maybe next to the Shy and Xiao Al. But man, his team fights in this series was just poor, just piss poor. Like the last team fight around Elder Dragon, where he just blew up with that, like knowing that his members weren't there yet. So he ended up like taking free damage while Shahu wasn't in the area. So I was like, all right, well, I think the team as a whole will probably go back and maybe take some of the wrong lessons, thinking I was like, maybe we shouldn't just never give Amazing J leads. But I think that it's completely fine in that composition to go topside. What you just need to be able to do is make the right calls when he ends up roaming, because he made, like, Amazing J early game made the right calls to roam through mid, but then they didn't set that up to succeed. And then in game 2, well, I mean, Amazing J just played bad, so like they'll try and like squish that together. So that's what I'm worried about. But yeah, that was not a good look for AJ and for RNG as a whole.
Right. Being as RNG's lost this series, and the next game they play is against BLG, a team that normally you'd think there's no problem, they're going to beat them, you know, a decent team, but RNG should definitely be. Can RNG lose to BLG?
Yeah, they can. My God, BLG is so good, dude. I don't know, Goomi's probably, he needs to be sold a little bit more. I don't know if he's giving me that look, but BLG, ADD, thank you, LCK. Because ADD is a blessing in disguise, man. I didn't expect it. Sure. His Sion and Poppy play is actually just so sick to watch. And their ability to play through Kuro, because obviously I think that the star is Kuro, but ADD is able to play through Kuro pretty damn well. He is literally Poppy'd into 2 Sleepy Trouble bubbles. So like, as in like other members. So like that's a combo now. If he sets up the Sleepy Trouble bubble trap, he just literally is like, well, I'm in position. I'll just poppy through you, because he doesn't actually necessarily need to hit. That happened like twice in the series in one game versus Suning. His flanks are on point. And then Kuro is just a fantastic player. He's even evolving too from like just being known as, you know, a mage type. I know in the LCK he had his few assassin plays and he had his few Yasuo games, but he's played the most assassins in this split than he has in his entire, not his entire career as a whole, but like in comparison to every other split.
Sure.
So he's just focusing on being able to play the assassins, and like he's first picking LeBlanc in this case. So it's pretty sweet to be able to see Kuro evolving in the regular season. And Kuro and ADD's play, I truly believe, is like just helping the team as a whole, because we're seeing Meteor playing well. Jinjao is probably having his best split in his life. And then Mini, even though he's like the rookie support, has been able to slip right through. Usually at this point you look for like some form of criticism, but there's already been direction on the team, so I don't really see anything. Like he just seems like he's just doing his job.
What do you think, Goomiho?
I actually agree. I do think that VLG can beat RNG, and I think it's just they've been so much more put together in general. I actually have to agree that ADD or Ed or whatever has been actually insane on tanks in particular. Poppy puts Amazing Jays to shame, even though Amazing Jays has its moments, and then his Sion is super good. I think Meteor has actually also been a pleasant surprise. I think that you know, when he has such strong solo lanes to work with, it's nice that he actually performs on top of that. Like, he's not just someone riding on the back of their coattails. Like, he's actually making the right decisions. He paths maybe too aggressively sometimes, but in general, I think he's been really good for the team. And for Kuro, like, and everybody wants to like pigeonhole him as like some like laner who only plays mages, but he's been actually popping off on LeBlanc Akali like whole split. Maybe not Akali anymore, but more LeBlanc will come in the future.
9.5, baby, it's coming back. Yeah. The shortest comeback of all time.
Maybe, but yeah, he has a lot of lane pressure, and he's been a great team fighter. And his Lissandra was also really good when he was playing more of that before. You know, I guess the only problem with VLG is like, well, we got Jinjao bot, but he's having his games. He's not bad. He's fine.
He's actually been so good. Like statistically, of course, because BLG has been performing well. He's been able to output damage in team fights, so his damage per minute is strong. Like there's a lot that has been working out well from him in that perspective. But like I haven't seen him like on that Kalista series game in particular where he's in flank. I haven't seen him be able to look to take that many risks in his life. He is the most risk averse AD carry I've seen. So the fact that he's able to just like dive straight through like that, there's a lot of faith in the communication that's been happening on this new team. Because just remember, like throughout his entire career, he was on BLG of old, like I may of old. That type of team that is the least consistent, and like the front line just almost never is frontlining. They're looking for flanks. So the fact that this time around, I think that there's far like. This team has made the change from the least consistent to the most consistent, regardless of whether they're the best or like middle of the pack. It's such a huge change for him, and you can see that he's responding to it well.
right? Being as I did that preamble about how like the best team changes and the team that can take them off. Obviously now we're all just going to jump off the FPX train that was apparently going off a cliff. And now we're all like, friendship with FPX is over. Top Sports is now my favourite friend team.
Yeah,
so we were all top fans from day one anyway. We all really secretly knew they were the best. Goomiho, this team could be actually, they're not only statistically the best at the moment in the LPL. If you look at the teams they've played, they actually might be the best, right?
Yeah, they haven't really run into a lot of trouble in general. Knight is so good. It all starts with the mid laner Knight. He's insane. He's best mid laner in the LPL. Yeah, it makes a big difference for them. Obviously, XX finally gets a chance to show up. Although in the games that they do fold, it is XX who's kind of falling apart. But I wouldn't really hold that against him. I think that TOP is probably like the real deal. Like I think they're probably going to win the split. I still hold out faith in RNG, but I'm not an IG believer personally. But either way,
really?
TOP, yeah.
Okay,
I'm not.
right. Well, we'll put that kind of words to one side. Listen, we'll open that in a second. Keep going. Keep going on TOP.
Yeah. I think what's been good for TOP is that they've played against a lot of good teams and that they've shown that they could actually adapt mid-series really well. At the start of the split, I remember specifically like they had this close series with JDG, and it would look bad at the start, but they really adjusted to them extremely quickly, and they're really good at assessing like exactly what goes wrong. So in an even longer series, like I actually find it unlikely that other teams beat them in best of 5.
Come on, Raz. What do you think?
And we're talking about
TOP. Yeah.
Yeah. I think TOP right now, or I'd say handily the second best team to Invictus Gaming. So we'll go back to that camera. We'll talk about it. We'll get to it later on. We'll get to it. But for TOP, like they are right now one of the most talented, like packed teams out there. It cannot be overstated. The fact that this team has XX Knight, Loken, and in the top lane 369. 369 is insane. Solo killed amazing. Jay, we could talk about that. Has done super well versus like essentially every top laner that he's gone up against. And had like pretty insane CS margins as well. So
and he's basically a rookie for anyone who doesn't know. Yes,
he's a rookie coming in from their LDL team. So the fact that he's able to come in and perform this well, it's a little sad in the sense that he like whenever people look towards the immediate success of TOP, it's of course XX and Knight.
Of course.
And even then, you'll go to Loken because of his previous success on JD, going as far as they did, and he is continuing to perform right now in TOP. But 369 is like right now one of the best top laners in the league. Like there's the Shy. You can have a debate about Xiao, but I think he's fallen off a little bit individually in his own lane. And then it would be like Zoom and 369. Like people would have a debate between Zoom and 369 being the second best top laner in the league. And
what I think kills me though, dude, is like
Yeah.
Like, I want to know why he came up with the name 369, because if you remember, there's that like Little John song that actually has a lyric like that where it's like 369, damn, she's fine, coming up to it all the time. That's all I think every time I see this guy.
That's going to be a good interview.
And he is a baller. Yeah, he's pretty good. He's a baller.
I need to find out. That's a good point.
I'll link you to the track if I can find it. If I can remember what song it is. It's like a Little John song though from back in the day.
I remember. I don't remember the name of the song, but I remember that one from my childhood. That was a good one.
Because there's no way this like 17-year-old Chinese kid knows about that song. I'm sure he just randomly picked the numbers, right?
Nah, hell no. Like LDL, LPL, there are so many numbers out there. There's only more numbers coming into the league. That's just that's the one thing. There's one guy in the LDL with 4 numbers in his name. This guy's in the thousands margin, so we have a lot to deal with.
I'm not ready.
Okay. Right. The thing is, before we do the whole IG discussion, right, we have to have the discussion on this. So Xander was actually fairly conservative there, where he was like, top could be the best mid in the LPL. It's like, dude, at this point in time, I'm not someone who like tries to overhype people, but just based on what you saw in the off season when TOP already started rolling, and then when you saw them now in the LPL, he has to be a contender for best player in the world. Like, I know people are going to go, that's blasphemy. It has to be everyone on Griffin. It's like, listen, I'd certainly put people like Tarzan, I'd Trophy, they'd be in my contention, but I think you have to have this guy in the conversation at least. He's fucking unreal. And his champion pool is bonkers.
Yes. Really, if we're just going through how competitive the pool is in the LPL mid lane talent, like, just across the board, we've gone through it, and how well he's consistently done versus them. And like, remember, English broadcast doesn't cover all these days. So like, whenever I'm just watching the Chinese stream, when it's like TOP versus OMG or whoever, and he just blasts them 1v1, and he comes out with like consistently like 40% damage percentage. Like, his damage is just like at the end of the game is just bonkers. A lot of the time, it's because he's such a strong Zoe player. But then when they take him off of Zoe, he has such a large pool. He has changed the pool, like in the LPL. When he picks up Corki, and it's like, what are you doing, man? It's not 9.4 yet. The crit changes in 9.3 hasn't gone through. Like, but he's like, it doesn't matter. My team will like prioritize my pick. I'll get to the late game in like 30 minutes pretty easily. I'll be perfect CS, and then I'll just smash you. And everyone's like, well, we're going to have to take away the Corki from him. So like, people are getting to these changes like much faster because he challenges them on his pool. So it's pretty crazy to be like how flexible and how masterful he is on the pick. So, yep, he the best now. I thought he was going to be second best to Rookie, but Rookie at the moment is not as consistent as him.
Yeah. Goomiho, you looked a bit skeptical when I was sort of going on my little, like, I was like his hype man. You're like, get him, Knight, you can get this motherfucker. Go! You think Griffin's better than you? These Koreans ain't shit. You see last Worlds, like, you looked a bit skeptical. Do you have reservations about him for some reason?
No, I have no reservations. He made Icon look like an amateur mid laner, which is pretty impressive. And
yes,
he plays everything. I think Corki's always good, by the way, but Corki's specifically good in players who will always win you lane, and will reward like proper positioning. And he actually snowballs still really hard even before crit changes. So I think that worked out for him. No, I don't really have reservations about like Knight being the best in the world. It's just kind of like I wish I could see teams and players challenged more. Like, I want to see the best teams actually play each other, and that would be nice. Sure. I think maybe in my head I favor Tarzan a little more, but that's all. Like,
well, I
think Knight is still there.
Like, obviously, even though everyone's going to say, well, what about Last Worlds? It's like, obviously, to some degree, if you're the best Korean player, you probably are the best player in the world, because the problem is, TOP, and unless they get to MSI and play Griffin, it's hard to really like prove yourself over the guy that everyone's watching in LCK going, holy shit, how is he this good? So, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, by default, I feel like you have to give the nod to one of the Griffin players, but I just think it's cool that there's a guy who's, not like an established name in the LPL who really could be a contender for that title. That shows where the region's going. Right, okay, let's do it then. Let's go ahead and open the little can of worms. Because first of all,
right, let's go.
Raz gave you something there. He gave you the concession that Rookie's not as sick this split, So come on then. Why aren't you feeling IG? Because, people want to believe they're going to turn it all around. They're going to come back. I mean, they've lost quite a few series already, sure, but they can't just hit peak form and just be the best again.
It's just because I think their peak form is like kind of overrated. I don't like they literally won Worlds.
Oh my god!
He's a skeptic of the Worlds win. Yes, come on, bring it to me. Give it to me. Come on.
I thought we went past this.
I mean, that was a monkey meta. Let's be real here. First off, like the meta that they won at Worlds is not a good one. So I'll say that. But even like looking at LPL, it's just yes, insane team fights, insane in lane. The team fights can go awry plenty of times because they take literally any fight they see. So it's more like insane mechanics in team fights. Yes, I'll say that because their team fight like decision making is actually not that good, but their micros, like individual micros, is really good.
Sure.
That's the biggest thing I hold against them. I still don't really see a lot of strategy. I don't like. It just feels like I can't really bet on them in long series and in the long term. But they can always have a run like they did at Worlds, and they could always, turn around a game that they should have lost because the Shy will just go absolutely crazy, or I don't know, or Rookie will go absolutely crazy. Although he has been going less crazy, I think he's actually had some off games for sure, like Raz said, and yeah, Jackie Love was kind of that missing piece. Obviously, we saw how bad they were with West. I was like, oh, please never not play Jackie Love ever again. I think, I think teams can wisen up to them, and unless it's something like that Worlds run, I think that another top tier team with prep and like a best of 5 should be able to take them out. And I think LPL's kind of the same thing. Like the LPL is extremely competitive, and I think that the other teams will figure them out when it comes to playoffs, like they always have.
See,
there we go. I knew there was something coming at the end there. I knew there was something coming at the end. He just put him in the grave at the end.
Yeah, wants to talk about playoffs, man. All right, let's go to number 1, which is that run to finals. The global meta at 2018 is the same damn thing right now. The changes that happened through preseason only really exacerbated the problems. All right, so we're talking about early laning phase being priority, early gold leads, snowballs, all of that stuff. My young Raz at 2018 was like, you know what, preseason is gonna change that. We're gonna slow the game down. We're gonna make it so there's not as much gold. Oh, more gold on the map. Oh, dragons are more important. Oh, you 10%? Is that what the first dragon? Literally, the meta right now is worlds on steroids. Gold bounties really to kind of change that a little bit to make it so there is some balance. But what kind of balancing act is that? That is a Hail Mary balance if I've ever seen it. So at the moment, gaming is the game's all about the laning phase. It's all about the individual talent. And the next Worlds or next MSI is really just going to be about the same thing. And for Invictus Gaming, you're right, the Shy is a major strength for the team. Rookie is, even though he had few bad games, this is a comparison to him being the best and now being what I think is the second best. It's that's maybe third. There's just a lot of amazing world-class mid laners in the LPL, but right now say second because I think that's just where he's consistent late at. No, okay, I'll give him third because Xiaohu's been playing that mad. I'll give him Xiaohu number 2. But that's just him getting tested within the LPL, and on top of that, I think if you take that many fights as a team that are just that poor, you will look bad. And I think that's been the case for Invictus Gaming with how they're willing to take anything. Their reasoning, if they go up against the worst teams in the league, if they go up against a mid-tier team that's just built off team fighting like Sino Dragons, they will pick that fight just because they think the enemy team thinks they can win. That is literally how petty they are, man.
Reminds me, to paraphrase the classic line that people used to use in basketball. I'll paraphrase it for this. It's they never saw a team fight they didn't like.
Yeah. Even if
no matter what it is, we'll take it. Yeah.
We'll take everything. It's in interviews, they don't even they don't try and shy away of being oh yes, we thought that was the smartest fight to take. They didn't say that. They criticize their own fights. They just say they take any fight. And it's they're afraid of going up against the worst teams, that Battleland is in particular, because it's well, we'll just take that fight, and it's not smart. So it's pretty crazy, and I think part of that, there are 2 parts to it. First part is that it's regular season, so they're willing to take these crazy fights because they know that it's not everything is on the line. And then the worst part of it is that they still feel Duke in these series in game time. And to me, that's why they lost versus FPX, is because they're willing to put Duke in when the Shy is able to smash so consistently in winning and losing matchups in laning phase. And in team fights is better. So while it's always difficult to be able to go across and say, yeah, this former world champion, he was essentially the X factor that didn't net you that win. A lot of it comes down to the fact that they could have won with him. They could have won with the West in previous games as well. But the issue is, you have the best top laner. You have, at the time, the best mid laner. Continue to use them. So I think when it comes to Invictus Gaming in regular season, we don't get to see the same, which goes to playoffs. Look, last year was all about RNG, all right? RNG was a great team that time around. RNG would let me and all that stuff. They were consistent. They had a top lane that can neutralize pressure and laning phase and everything. And I always called that Invictus Gaming would win a finals in that one, or the semifinals in spring. And I was just damn wrong. At least in spring, it was because Jackie Love didn't have the experience. But in summer split, that was it was the experience and the Shy not being there.
Sure.
But in the summer split, that was just RNG being the better team. So this time around, I'm gonna make the same bet because if I, at least one of these are gonna pay off.
Famous last words.
At least one of these are gonna work out.
But which I do believe was like, bearing in mind, for anyone who doesn't know, IG is like the Katie Rolster of China, and so like again, it's the same logic. Like that is basically the motto that everyone's been saying about IG their entire history. Every time they've had a good team, it's like surely now they'll be the best.
Yeah, at least this time, it doesn't work out. Even when they're the best team in the world through their world championship, they still can't take
That's
the
the most
victory.
IG thing to do, wouldn't it?
It's crazy.
If they made it to the final now and lost to anyone, that would be the most IG thing to do. Win Worlds and then fucking lose in the final LPL.
Win Worlds, lose to some other team, and then the worst thing, let's just say a year down the line they win Worlds again. It's like, please just win domestically.
They're like the Samsung.
Just win domestically. Oh my goodness. It's like new RNG all over again.
It's true.
Okay, what about this then? So I've noticed with EDG Goomiho that this is the team where, because they're just not going to be the best team again, that's clear. Like, that time's been and gone. Like, they don't even have the super sick coaches or anything. They don't have the best players. They have some pretty good players. They have some young players that are pretty good. And it's like, if you look at the lineup, it shouldn't be the best team in the LPL. Like, makes a lot of sense. But you can't deny them. Like, they still just stick around somehow. Every time you think they're dead, they stay relevant somehow. So they're still just on the fringe. What do you think of EDG at the moment?
I think they suck, but they
they win games though. I don't know how.
They're coin flip team, I guess. I actually thought they would lose to OllieJ just because of how they were playing before, and maybe they would fall for OllieJ's stupid team fights and super split push strategies. But I don't know. EDG with Clear Love, they clearly have some direction. They have more direction again, but I don't you lose so much. I think when you don't have Haro, because Haro makes so many cool things happen when he gets to play things, especially Lee Sin. They're just not impressive. They've been the same team for a while now. Bot lane's extremely important, and you saw that when they didn't play iBoy. When they didn't play iBoy, it's like, well, that's it. Can't win lane. Can't do anything. But yeah, I don't know. They're kind of boring, honestly. When I watch them, I'm just like, well, this might actually be the most I think they're less entertaining than I don't know, teams like V5 or Snake or something. I don't know. They're not fun to watch at all.
Well, I mean, okay.
I know.
You're choosing
that's not how you really feel.
you're choosing the most extreme teams, the teams that will literally always fight. V5 is the second bloodiest team to Invictus Gaming, and then Snake are just nonsense. So
nothing they
you're
do
just going off the deep end on that one.
At least they're
here's
fun
the
to
thing.
watch.
Obviously, in the next matchup, EDG does play FPX. So, is this the rebound game for FPX? You taking FPX on this one?
You know what? There's a strange way in how they match up that maybe FPX just folds because their bot lane doesn't
Jesus.
win. But I don't know. I think EDG is very much the it's everyone's playing rock paper scissors, and then EDG is just the fourth one, and they randomly beat I don't know, whatever someone picks. I'm just
oh my god.
I think they're I don't know. I mean, they might beat FPX. I
Wait
don't
a
think they
minute.
beat FPX.
I mean, to be fair, the whole point of rock paper scissors is supposed to be symmetrical,
Yeah.
So I guess your version's fucking Uno or something, and they're just one of those bullshit cards that if you get draw four, what the fuck? We were playing before. Why have you added that to the game? It's just bullshit, isn't it? They're just a wild card, I guess.
I think EDG are once again I disagree with Gumi because I think EDG are just very good right now. Losing
really?
to LGD is just it's an inevitability. There's also that they're playing. They played Hope and who else was it? Mole in the top lane.
Sure.
Mole, the former mid laner for BLG, and they threw him up in the top lane. Why teams got to disrespect like that? Because Ray right now is playing the best right now he's ever played.
That's true. I agree with that.
He's Vladimir. There are so many insane carry picks and options that he went. Because early on, I think midway through the split, I was saying I don't want to see Ray on a carry. I just want to see him on the tank because that's what made them successful in Gauntlet run going into Worlds. Is that this was a team that could play front to back team fighting because Ray was a great tank, but didn't necessarily have the pressure to work out in lane. In the first few weeks in the split, they had 2 carries, bottom lane, top lane, whoever didn't get the jungle was the one that was like dying to early ganks because they were trying to like hard trade on the matchup. I was like, what the hell? Oh yeah, it's like he hard trades like okay, because like essentially that you'd have carry top lane and bot lane, and then he would like hard trade in the matchup when the jungle matchup isn't top side, and you'd be like, what the hell is wrong? Like, what's going on with that? Why are you doing that? And then whoever didn't get the jungle pressure from Haro would just die. And you're like, well, I guess you're just constantly trading deaths on the map that like unwillingly. But recently, literally like the last 2 to 3 weeks has just been super respectful EDG, like slowly playing, and I think a lot of that comes down to the like respecting shot calling with like Clear Love and Mako. So Clear Love in the mix definitely slowed the pace of the game down, and you already see right now just the individuals playing better. So right now it's iBoy playing much better than he did in the first few weeks, and then also Ray just having the split of his life where he's just like coming in like constant MVP performances on his Vladimir, playing out these carry picks like very respectfully when he's on the losing matchup. And then having great flanks, like in team fights, like always consistent. Even when he's in 2v1, like 1v2 situations where he's like, oh, he should lose this in lane, he's able to outplay. So right now he's incredibly focused, and it seems like he took a lot of whatever the coach said, whatever heart. Like I don't know what happened in the like 1 week interval in which he was like from bad to good, but good job. And I think that EDG right now are I'd say a top 4 team with how consistently they've been playing. Wow. So it just comes down. I think they're consistent. If we take the inevitability of the LGD set aside, I think them going up against FPX later tonight should just be them going the distance. I would say that. Let's see, who am I going to bet to win on this one? Like my Monopoly dollars will go towards. I'll go EDG. I think EDG will take that set. I think they'll do it. I think it's going to be like they play through mid jungle once again. They slow the pace of the game down, and they're probably one of the kryptonites to FPX's chaotic style because FPX is not a team that's able to get it like control. They got control of objectives early on in one of the previous series. I think it was going up against one against RNG in one game, and then IG. So they're not that bad at that. But EDG is the team that really focuses on that, being able to make the best of their control ward. So I think they should be fine around Scout.
Right. Goomiho. Go on, mate. Come on.
I just wanted to clarify my stance on EDG. Like I was really harsh on them, but I still think they're like playoff team. I think they're just like not as good as like what TOP, FPX, RNG, IG.
Yeah.
I think they're right below that.
Okay.
And like I love BLG, but I'm not quite the BLG believer either. So I think they're like above BLG. But yeah,
we're like the opposites. Oh no! I am like a BLG and EDG fanatic right now, but I'm also very aware that EDG is a team that can like on a coin flip, kind of just anything that can change them. They'll just look bad in the next series. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Right. One team that I want to talk about is another, just like EDG, it's another legacy team. And that is a team I thought, Goomiho, I was done with this team. It's over. I don't want to hear about World Elite anymore. Team WE, as they're actually called for the last 5 years or whatever. So yeah. I'm even the one using the old name. But okay, Team WE. I thought I was done with them now. I thought I could finally stop ever watching them, consign them to the basement bin of the world, move on. And then somehow they've wound the clock back. And I think I've seen this story before, Goomiho. Like Mystic on carries, gets all the kills. Shia just plays his champion pool mid and, has his pop-off games, has his okay games. What do you think of WE? Because the record's not great, but they're doing something.
I think they're doing what they did last year for the most part. They're like above, I don't know about above average. Maybe they're just like average with like upset potential. I don't know. They have really good carries. I know a lot of people will get down on Shie occasionally, but like I always really like how he plays. Actually,
sure.
He's like a dumber Doinb maybe in my head. Like he doesn't really think about his team, but like I think some of the things that he does like creates like good byproducts for Team WE. And I think especially when you have a player like Mystic who's always such a good late game carry, it's a very reliable. It's like a nice way for WE to win games. I'm not really a believer, obviously, in W. Like, I don't think they're going to be a good team. Oh, but actually, Beishang has made a big difference for them in jungle.
The jungler, yeah.
It's been enormous. So he actually has made them look a lot better. So I'll give them credit there. Like, I thought they were like a deadbeat team at the start of the split because it's like, well, they don't really have a jungler, but now they do have a jungler. And top lane's still not great, but, they're solid. They're not gonna break into playoffs. I think. I have faith in like Sino Dragon. Maybe JDG could like fall off. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna break into playoffs. So they can definitely challenge the teams that like are on the bottom of the playoff like run.
What do you think of them at the moment?
I think for Team WE, going into playoffs is hard. If there's any team that can break into it, I think it would be Suning, especially with how well they played versus TOP, even in that loss. So yeah, that's gonna be hard. But I think the ownership for WE is in their facilitators. Like for instance, like jungle, top lane, maybe even a little bit of support. But I think Missing has been playing pretty good. He had one anti-highlight moment when they tried to dive the Shy in the IG set by like basically killing his AD carry by headbutting and missing the pulverize. That was just one thing that no one wants to see. That's one thing no one wants to see.
It's a bit sad.
That's always the part about like playmakers, like, you know, obviously like the Alistair, the Lee Sin. It's like, it's all well and good when they're doing the really sick kicks and pushes, but it's like every single one of them has the misfire where it's like, you just made my life worse. You made it worse. Especially when you like do it to the AD carry. Like that's the classic one, isn't it? Like I forget who it was who did the most classic one ever. I always forget who it is who did like some bad jungler did some like classic move where he, like Lee Sin kicked a fucking like, it might have been in LCS actually.
I think it was like an
kicked.
NA.
Someone onto his AD carry who was running away, and it was a Hecarim. Yeah, you're right. So he kicked it like the Hecarim onto the running away AD carry, which is like, dude, like, are you actually on their team? What is this shit?
I think I remember who it was actually.
Classic, yeah.
I remember that. But yeah, it was one of those like I'm helping moments. It definitely killed Mystic in that one. But damn, yeah. That's for me. Beishang coming in makes a lot of sense. If Post plays better, if Beishang plays like continues to pick up his pace, they'll win more games, and I think they'll find their way into playoffs. But at the moment, I think Post is just not. He's not getting the pressure that will net him like the same kind of gains that Ray has been getting. But also, he's just not playing nearly as well as any of the carry top laners in the league. But he's consistently playing carry top laner, so he's not going to be moving off of it. So when they beat BLG, it was basically off of Mystic and Xie's hyper carry picks. Like, the game goes really long and they can farm up, and their team fights gets exponentially better because they can just focus on like how they're impacting those fights. So for Team WE, the meta changing and getting longer is actually such a large benefit to them. But once again, that's also a strength of Sino and a strength of I would also say it's a strength of JDG. So like that's something that I still think they lose to relatively to the teams above them.
Okay.
I feel like now is the time. We've warmed you up here, Goomiho. We've sort of like given you a chance to do some edgy opinions. We have to have the Suning discussion. It's going to be depressing for obvious reasons. Because you know what?
Great,
dude, I'll say it, right? I made that joke at the beginning, but I was the guy who, ever since Flash Wolves became good, I always used to say, I mean, a bit naively in the past, like, why don't they just play in the LPL? Why don't they just, put Maple, like back in the day when, for example, Midland talent wasn't that great, put Maple in the LPL, he'll fucking pop off. I was wrong about that, but, give Sword Art to some of those sick Chinese AD carries. I might even have picked SMLZ as one that could, really use something like that. What do you think of the Suning team that's coming in the league? I mean, they've got a losing record for starts. Let's just get that out of the way, right?
Yeah, they went from 4-0 to 5-7, so it's not been good. But my general opinion on Suning is that it's a mismatch of player strengths. I think that they got good players, but I think it's just I don't think they'll ever be good with this lineup. I don't think the chemistry actually works out properly. So I'll say with this, Sword Art's always been the best with an AD carry that wants to actually do something in laning phase. I don't really get that from SMLZ, even though SMLZ is great in team fights.
Sure.
And I think it changes his playstyle a lot. It reminds me a lot of 2015 when he played with Kramer briefly. Like, Enna was benched for a split, basically, and he played with Kramer. He's just like shackled to bot lane. He doesn't get to make the same decisions that he normally would. And I think it really doesn't help that they've like been playing musical chairs with their junglers until recently. And I don't think either jungler was particularly proactive either. So it like way super passive, and then Hacker just wasn't playing the game honestly until recently, and I think his games against TOP made a big difference there. So I think, and that's just bot side. I think Maple also is just not going to give you authority on lane ever. He needs someone who plays around him a lot, and he's always been that way. He's never been great in lane, or like super good in lane, I should say. Like he's been okay in lane. But he makes his big impact in team fights because he always has a really good sense of when to go for backline or actually when to peel for AD carry when he did with Betty, because he didn't really do that with NL. But it's I a lot of their performances were being held together by Xiao Ao actually, because he's so consistent as a top laner and he's really smart in choosing engages traditionally. Maybe laning phase hasn't been going as well for him lately, but I can't see everything. It's not also the greatest matchup sometimes, and I think that unless they find a way for their bot lane to be really active while playing the way that I don't see it. I actually don't see it. SMLZ, good player. I just don't see him working. He doesn't. I even remember like the Victor games, like where his positioning was like atrocious versus VG Gaming. Like he's like literally killing himself, and I hated watching him play Victor.
Recent games he's been doing that too. Recent games, no matter what champion he's been playing, he's just been like in such worse, like horrible positions. So like the whole point I made about him being the best player that hasn't made it to world. My God, he's trying his hardest to prove me wrong. he's like MVP first few weeks. He's like, all right, excellent. Now I can just start taking my days off. This team really reminds me of 100 Thieves in the sense that like the expectation of this team when it was built up is not showing like its worth in like the product, because they have the players. They have the players that team fights should be a major strength to them. They have a smart player in Sword Art as well. Like all of these players have been known for being able to play it out in team fights. Like Sword Art, SMLZ, Maple, Xiao Al's been wonderful every team fight I've seen them in the previous splits. But then they just can't get things together. Like SMLZ dies nearly every time in like the beginning of these team fights because he's positioning. It's not even. I can't blame Sword. That's literally him. He's putting himself out there to dry consistently, and he's always isolating himself. So it might be an issue of communication. So like that's been my issue, and it just like goes to show like it answers the questions for me about SMLZ in the past, because SMLZ on his own has such amazing outplay potential and like moments in the past. But all of them is like when he's broken away from his team or hasn't followed the right the same comms with his team, or even in the previous split when he was with Rogue Warriors, it was like him and Killer weren't on the same page, but he had some sick moments in team fights where he just flew through on his own. So coordination with SMLZ has never been on the same damn page. Like it's never been something he's known for playing with the team, and I wonder if that's a little bit of it, because Sword Arts and Tom Kench duty very similar to what Killua was before they ended up breaking away, and usually that's a major indicator of, hey, the moment I leave lane, you're dead. Like that's just and that's what I'm worried about with this team, is that there's so much no laning happening. You're right, bottom lane, mid lane are not known for lanes, and top lane hasn't been winning as of late. So when they find early game leads, they're not able to like seal them in team fights, and most of the time recently they haven't been able to pick up early leads. So TOP has been a real struggle. And even the previous, I just said that I thought that Suning were going to make it to playoffs. Their record does not help them out. Like they have not enough series to really make that case for them. So it's very easy for Team WE, Sino, and maybe even Victory 5. Like for those teams, they'll have like either 2 or 1 more game to play over Suning. That mathematically Suning they have a long shot at making it to playoffs.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to take this opportunity now. By the way, Betty's better than SMLZ. There you go.
Oh my God! Please stop it. Get this man off the show.
I know. I didn't realize it was going to be such a controversial episode. You know,
they're like hyenas, man. They just wait for this guy to have one few games, and they're like, "This guy is better." It's like, what the? Next, you're going to be saying Hanabi is like better than like the moment the 1 second Duke or the Shy have one like bad split. He's like, I'm just saying Hanabi was always better. Like he came.
I got nothing on Hanabi. Betty gave Sword Art the best years of his career. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my! You know what? Right now, that's true, and I can't say anything to that right now.
Betty line is like, it reminds me of that Kanye line where he goes like, my ex said she gave me the best years of her life. I saw a picture and she was right. It's like, it's harsh, but it's fair. It's harsh but fair. You know,
harsh.
I can't hit on it.
Not fair. God
So
damn.
okay, here's the question. Speaking of people who've given their best years, Goomiho, one of the other reasons why I used to hype the Flash Wolves players is because here's the thing. Whenever everyone used to use the old get out when like TSM would fail at Worlds and be like, well, you know, the game's not really a very solo game now and players can't really pop off. I used to say, really? You think that that's an excuse for Bjergsen? Go look at Maple when he plays versus Korean teams. This guy's actually like carrying. He's a monster. Where's that guy? Why is he joining the LPL when he's not good? What the fuck is this now? It's depressing.
His actual best performances were when he had like dead weight top and bot lane. I think that says a lot about Maple. Like he's really good. He succeeded the most in the Flash Wolf system when they were a mid lane focused team, and I think that shows here in Suning too. It's like if you're not mid lane focused, he's not going to give you exactly what you want. If you have like a strong enough side lane, then I don't think it matters if he's not focused on. It's just that's not the case right now, so he's just gonna look worse. And he still had good team fights, by the way. Like even though like he's not performing like anywhere near the top of the LPL and mid lane, I think he still had like some really good team fights. It's just that's not enough to like really offset his general impact. And yeah, that's how it is. I wish they could have brought Betty too.
Well, and like you said,
oh
earlier,
my god,
doesn't really help to have Maple and SMLZ where it's like they're good in team fights. Like we can't get to any though. You know, we can never get there. So catch-22 scenario for all of us there.
Yeah, it doesn't really work. And playing around top lane is actually hard. So I respect the teams that do. So I think that's I think Suning systems they're done. But, yeah.
Last season that used to be what Hacker did. Like they would get consistent first bloods through top lane on Xiao Al, but it seems like they've been trying to change that up, play through mid a little bit, and it's just like it's a new dynamic as well. So that has been failing at times. So it's rough for. It's like an identity crisis there for Hacker, where he's trying to figure out where he's best suited, and it's not really paying off. He can't go bottom lane because they're not laning; they're surviving. And also, SMLZ has never been really like a laning phase AD carry. He has his moments on his Caitlyn picks, but other than that, it's like, all right, we're moving away from that. So I think playing through mid is the best way for this team, and it hasn't been necessarily working. And a lot of teams have played through mid and have been so much better. So they have a lot cut out for them.
Oh yeah, one last thing. I also think like just drafting more away from SMLZ would be great. Like just give Sword Art something that actually can like 1v2 lane. I'm fine with that too. I think like there's potential in like just play casters. Well, you have to ban Thresh. You have to ban Thresh if you're going to do that. Sure. But if you play casters and you ban Thresh, then I think there's more potential for Suning to actually win games. And that's like the last thing I have to say.
Oh no, they tried that on Rogue Warriors, and then guess who died to repeated ganks? It was Kilo. It's not a. It's a tough strategy, man.
It's a different
strategy.
It's a different support.
There we go. There we go.
Of course.
I know.
Yes.
So, right, what about this then? So you alluded to them earlier, but a team that obviously Westerners will know fuck all about is Sino Dragon. Now, this is a squad where, they're mid-table. If you look at who they've beaten and lost, generally, it's looking as logical, losing to mainly the top teams, beating mainly the bottom teams, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they have a victory over top a few weeks back. So, come on, tell us about this team. What do you think of them?
SDG? They're going to beat FPX this week. That's one. Second,
he's just coming with all the spice today. Where's this shit? I know.
Okay, you know what?
They're a fun team, actually. Like I think some people think they're really boring, but I really like how teams like this play because I have actually watched a lot of 1202. I know Raz has because he also watched the LDL, but I watched him specifically because he played with GotJJ, so I had a reason to.
Right.
He's just really big on controlling mid. He plays weird champions. Aurelion Souls 1, obviously, but I think I'm actually really impressed with their side lanes. I think their AD carry Gala is quite good. He's been really good mid late game team fights, and I think Changhong's I think he's going to be a star top laner for sure. In the long term, I think right now he's already really good. So they have really reliable side lanes, and they have Tula, who does hit the Tula things. He's not really good, like I'll be honest, but he plays Lulu, he plays Aurelion Soul. He obviously hasn't really done much of that, but he has a very specific style that works for his team, and I think it's paying off in the fact that they're beating they're consistently beating teams with identity crises, and they can still challenge top teams even if they're mechanically better overall. But that's mainly just in mid, because I think their sidelines, like I said, are actually quite competitive.
Yeah.
They're a good team. I think that against FPX, they're going to be like a more balanced version of FPX, and if they can just give Tula like good matchups, because that's all he needs, then they're fine. I think they'll win. But yeah.
So overall, I think FPX is like I would say I think they're 5th place, like 4th place team. Like they're as in like in terms of going up against IG, TOP. I would even say BLG and EDG. I would probably have over them. That's my rough take on it. And so for Sino Dragons, I think they'll lose that series just because like individual talent is something that will get like they'll be overwhelmed with.
That's fair. That's fair.
But with Sino against TOP, what I remember I heard from an interview, Clement ended up telling me about the interview where it was like they asked Knight like what ended up happening, and Knight in particular said that he thinks that Xiaopeng knew too much of his inclinations or knew too much about him, because they are a duo. They duo a lot in solo queue.
Okay.
So like Xiaopeng and
it's an inside job.
Knight. He's like, he knows too much about me.
Exactly.
He kept catching me out in rotation. So like there's that when your opponent knows a little bit maybe too much about you. And Sino Dragon's a team that in team play can just turn it on when they play around their jungle. So that's true. That's fair. And that's why even though early on I think I said that WE has a good chance to make it to playoffs. Suning has a good chance to make it to playoffs. I only really said that because I think Suning is playing in playoff mode right now. They're playing at a level which I think that if they had the games to work with, then they could. But in terms of right now, statistically, Sino Dragons are in a really good spot in that position with
got a couple of bad games left after the FPX one. Yeah,
exactly.
Teams, basically.
So it's pretty easy for them to go through the rest of the schedule, and they're very consistent in terms of like what their play style is, what their identity is. And Twyla, here's the thing that I want to see going forward is that I think Twyla's best pick is Cassiopeia. And in the first like 4 weeks, Cassio was broken and banned like every game. Now that it's been opened up repeatedly and like he can play whenever he wants, I think he'll go back to it, and you'll start to see what Twyla can do on the pick.
Okay. Right, what we'll do then is the last team we'll talk about is going to be Jiangheng Gaming. So at the moment, they're a playoff team. If you look throughout the season, despite the fact they obviously themselves had some players leave and join in the off-season, got some good players though, obviously, got some of the Rogue Warrior guys.
Yep.
This is a team where you look at them and they've been able to give games to the top teams, but they don't really beat the top teams generally. So, Raz, where is this team at the moment?
Oh, no. They're just I think they're either 6th or 5th or 7th. As a team, they have a real issue, which is unfortunate. When they lost Clid, I thought they were fine, and I still think that's the case. I think Levi and Flawless can fill that hole pretty not easily, but like they can fill that hole, and I think they'll come in aggressive early to hold up their lanes. Their solo lanes are the same as per usual, but man, I didn't expect their AD carry position to be that tough. Like I thought that between Bavoy and it's tough, man. Like when Loken left, I was like, okay, maybe they'll find somebody that can be able to fulfill the passive laning and strong team fighting aspect. But Bavoy comes in and he's passive laning and he can get to team fights, but he is the anti-clutch. He is literally just like when he's in those moments in fights, he'll find a way to die. And I thought Imp could do well. I thought Imp could grow. I had pretty much high praise on Imp and how he played through LGD when they had zero structure. And everyone thought like, he's washed up. I was like, no, man. Just give him a team, a structure. He'll do well. He'll fly. I had the most faith in Imp when he comes onto a real team. And then he came onto a real team, and you saw that series versus VP Gaming, like one of the worst teams in the league. And for him, he struggled. He kept going. He kept picking the Vayne, and he would always challenge positions. So he came into these situations in team fights where he knew he was playing the right mentality. Walk up first and look to initially try and dodge out an ability so you can bait some cooldowns off them. And it wasn't a bait because it was hitting him. It's just like
and Puff
clean.
And Southwind are pretty good. So
Puff and Southwind are wonderful. Like they're good individuals, and I think it looked bad for him because he wasn't able to perform in laning phase and in team fights. But like team fights should be fine. The facilitators for VG Gaming are the problem. So that's where I think I see the problems for JD is that going up against the best teams, they're currently having a hole in their bottom lane where Imp ends up giving up the most kills in laning phase. And when they get out of lane, it's not much better. It's more so trying to concede as little while having the Dumpling Brothers be able to hard carry those fights.
Yeah, they have really good solo lanes, and that's like really obvious. And then jungle's been interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
And they have it's like literally just two junglers with like potential, right? Like they have the games where they're great, and then they have the games where they're nothing. I still remember Levi's very first play in the LPL was like missing a flash unburrow, and I'm like, I guess that's unfortunate.
That's a shame.
You just have to click on the right unit, and he didn't, and he just fed that game because he missed up that one play, and I think that's like a very good it represents his season well, and maybe JDG jungle in general. Yeah, bot lane's a black hole. But I mean, their solo lanes are great. As Zoom, Yigao, like they make a big difference. But I don't know. I think this is the team that is most likely to fall out of playoffs of like top 8 teams right now. Bavoy should not be playing in like professional leagues, honestly. And then
he's no Betty, we know that. None of them are.
He's no Betty.
No, neither's Imp anymore. So as long as they know.
Yeah. I don't know. JDG,
how highly do you actually rate Yigao individually?
Yigao, good. I'm trying to think of like mid laners. Not like elite.
Kuro, Scout, Doinb, Rookie.
So there's a
lot. Like those are all
he's below those easy.
Yeah.
I think.
Zhao Hu, it's pretty insane the mid lane talent.
Okay, I guess he's like 7th, 8th best mid laner probably, but like I don't know, like individually it doesn't. And if he gets Zoe, then he can be the best mid laner sometimes. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think like LPL mid lane is actually just super deep. I think it's more of a testament to that. I think Yigao is really good.
I agree.
Top lane's the true carrier of that team either way, but like Yigao, super good. Just so many good mid laners above him. It's kind of hard to be like, he's like best, like top 3 or whatever.
That's true. If you ever say he's like 6th place, people will be up in arms. But when you actually list the names, you're like,
pretty insane.
I'll agree with that.
I mean, the sheer amount of like MVP candidates in mid lane, especially over the last few years and now this year, is nuts, obviously. Okay, here's another question then. So because obviously the problem with Jiangdong is because they haven't been an elite team and they haven't had like so many great performances, it's always tough for me to gauge individual players when they're on like middling teams or teams that aren't quite at the top. So the other player you referenced, you picked him as the carry, is Zoom, who obviously has been very impressive. Does the fact that he, like most of the really good top laners in the LPL, have a good jungler? Now, his jungler is a bit more hit and miss. What do you think about Zoom individually?
I think Zoom is great. I think Zoom is like the best player on that team. That's when I think of top laners, I think it's a lot more likely that you can be like he's probably like a wait, let's see. He could be a top 4 top laner, right? I'm trying to think of top laners right now. I think that's fair.
I have him as I haven't traded with number 2 at the moment, so like I think him yeah.
And when I think of top laners, it's like, well, okay, the Shy's the best, and then I think there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more arguments that you can make. Yeah.
Yes.
And he's top laner in or one of the top laners in the LPL. He has just deadweight bot lane. Yeah, and no jungles.
Yeah, he has a lead so consistently, and I think like one reason for it is because by necessity they need to feed resources to him, so they will readily trade bottom lane for top side. So no real laner will be able to come up against that without it going into a deficit. The only time he's ever fallen into a deficit, I think, is I don't really remember he did well in the Invictus Gaming series, so that was fine. It was up against Ray actually versus our EDD. That's the only time he actually fell in, like that far behind in a deficit early on in the game. But Zoom has been so fantastic. Early laning phase, team fighting. He's been like such a large force. So I think he is one of our bests. So pretty crazy stuff. This team really is relying on their best to carry up the weight. I hope that Imp really starts to, find that level of consistency for his team if they want to be able to make the deep run, because we're that close to playoffs. So that's just essentially what I'm just looking for.
This video was supported by Dean Tanglis, Andreas, Snazore Westerlund, James Harding, NateDOhDoubleG, OllieJ, Tobias Bernasconi, Travis Greb, Tristan Jones, Daniel Olivar, Jiangheng Lu, and special thanks, as always, goes out to Jerky's Minion, one of my OGs. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask me a question. I have a monthly AMA. Perhaps you want teasers for who the next guests are on my upcoming talk shows. Maybe you want to be part of my monthly discussion where my top patrons talk to me. Well, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the description box link for Patreon.